Another widespread characteristic of the community that Noah was living in was empiricism, meaning that people were believed in and trust everything they could see or sense by their senses. Experimentalism would be another interpretation for this, meaning that someone would believe in something only if they can experiment it, only if they can smell, touch, taste, see, or hear it. It is said that Muhammad was talking to the dead soldiers of the enemy after war. People said in surprise, "They are dead and cannot hear you." He answered, "They are more receptive than you now, since they can hear sound and voices that the alive cannot hear, voices of us and angels." This is the difference of the way these mentalities think and the way God's messengers see the world. So empiricism and experimentalism says, if something exists, it has to be sensed by human senses. But why is this mentality wrong? When a teacher called an absent student in classroom, students would tell him that the person is absent. But how did they find out his absence when they can't see or sense him? Does not seeing him means he doesn't exist? Something has to be existed for its existence to be denied. In this example, students reasoned rationally. They concluded his absence because they knew he was present yesterday. In Quran, when Moses asked to see God, he answers, "You shall never see me with your eyes," meaning that he should have reach and see God by wisdom. The most beautiful masterpiece and useful creation of God is wisdom. God told Noah to build the ark. How long do you think it take to build the ark? It is said from 2 years up to 40 years. Even some Jews said up to 120 years. It was a very massive ark with 600-meter length, 4-meter width, and 300-meter height. Interesting fact is that it was not raining a lot at the location where he was told to build the ark. Even some says it was almost a desert area. God likes contradiction. He made most important enemy of Moses to save him from river when he was a baby and nurtured him. Noah had a knowledge that his people didn't have. He knew there will be a storm. Was it possible to examine the storm and its possibility with their experimental logic? Not at all. Put yourself in their shoes. Would you believe Noah and the storm if you were among them? Most of us would have said, based on what scientific knowledge, the storm prediction was like a joke and unrealistic claim for those people. They were telling Noah, how is it possible for someone to build the most complicated structure like an ark in his first woodcraft experience? What if the ark has engineering issues? God says in Quran, build the ark under my observation. Gabriel was teaching him how to build the ark. It has been said that he taught Noah how to use iron nails, or what kind of wood is suitable for the ark. Do you know how many people believed in Noah? 8 people, or some have said 80, and that shows how hard it was for Noah to convince those experimental minds back then. Looking at it in a different point of view, even in experimental and empiricism logic, having an ark is the only way to encounter a storm, which Noah did. Quran have mentioned that water elevated slowly, and even despite knowing that, they rejected to believe in Noah. Now the question is, why didn't people believe in Noah and rejected him, despite witnessing the storm and validity of Noah's words? This mentality that makes someone to reject something despite knowing its validity is the most dangerous threat for humanity. It will lead people to directly or indirectly reject the truth. It takes over people's mind to the point where it makes them kill a good person or support the killer, like how they killed Hussein. In this mentality, people will call such storm merely a natural phenomenon, but Noah called the storm God's will. A will that sometimes come in form of flood, sometime in form of earthquake, and some other time in form of an oppressive nation who raids into another country. If you look at Noah's situation closely, he was the most rational person back then. Because for a flood, creating a ship using wood would be the best way to encounter it. He thought through everything, such as the supply, the space he needed for passengers, He even made the ark waterproof by using pitch, tightened with iron nails, and so on. Looking at the current state of the world, we can see that all those mentalities I mentioned still exist among us, and in Quran, God called those with this mentalities the most corrupt people of all. These people trying to deceive others too for their own sake. How? Let's be clear with an example. God says, resist against them, endure hardships, and one day a Savior will come, in whose reign there will be no war, no disease, no poverty, and so on. But on the other hand, corruption offers Sin City and says, don't put yourself in any trouble. Enjoy your life and have fun here. For an experimental mind, it would be better to choose the latter. But is it the right choice too? Islamic Revolutionary of Iran happened back in 1979 was to stand against these mentalities in their country. Before 1979 in Iran, people were living quietly, saying nothing against government. They were doing their prayers and other religious activities, but one thing changed, and it was nothing but standing against these mentalities that rulers of the country and government had. But as they started to stand against it, their king and government tried so hard to shut them off. Even after people won against government, then it was USA, Israel, UK, and many other countries who tried to shut Iran off by imposing an 8-year war against them. Even now, they do everything they can to knock down Iran's new government. And this is how dedicated this corruption is, to silence everyone who is against it. The next mentality I want to talk about is rationalism. It means that reason rather than experience is the foundation of certainty. It means to put thinking into something and judge by thought, not wisdom. Just in case you don't know, wisdom and thought are different from each other. Even wisdom and knowledge are also different from each other. Being knowledgeable doesn't necessarily mean someone's wise. I have been consultant in several psychology cases in which professors, physicians, and engineers were among them. They were knowledgeable, but not wise. To make it crystal clear, some people have the knowledge that how harmful smoking is for their body, but why do they start smoking? This is where wisdom comes in. They have enough knowledge of its harmfulness, but not enough wisdom to not doing it. Irrational wisdom is different from religious wisdom. Let's say wisdom is an ability that tells us the usefulness and harmfulness of something. Rational wisdom is summarized in the 5 senses, meaning that it defines usefulness and harmfulness based on perceptible profit and loss, while religious wisdom defines them based on both perceptible and imperceptible profit and loss. In Islamic ideology, wisdom is something that helps us overcome all sort of problems and difficulties, either visible or invisible. So something might be considered wise in religious point of view, but not wise in rationalism perspective. And this is one of the most important reasons of the conflicts and war in the world. Max Weber, a famous German sociologist, says, "New Western civilization foundation has been risen from rationalism." Next characteristic we want to discuss about is skepticism, which means to be doubtful to everything. This characteristic have also existed among the community Noah was living in. They used to say, "We doubt if you belong to the liars or not." Skepticism toward everything, especially toward religious concepts, comes from this kind of mentality, like the kind of doubtfulness among us when we talk about Jesus Christ's story, or about Moses and the 600,000 people crossing through middle of the sea. We doubt and ask ourselves if it was real or not. Or another example is when some people say, "Who's gone to afterlife and has returned to confirm its existence?" In contrast, I'd say if someone believes in intangibles doesn't mean he doesn't have a good life or lives in many hardships. He has a totally normal life, just like others, but with a little limitations. Like he drinks all drinkable except alcoholic ones, or eats all eatable except porks and dog's meat, which are not halal. And an interesting fact is that those things God had forbidden to eat or do will turn out harmful for us. So God's words aren't even against rationalism wisdom, who uses humans' main senses to conclude useful or harmfulness of something. For example, scientists have said that pork has a kind of parasite that dies in certain heat and harmful for our body. Scientists have recently found out about such harm, while Muslims have avoided eating pork and drinking alcohol from 1400 years ago because Allah, their God, told them to. When some people weren't convinced with Imam Sadiq's reasons about harmfulness of drinking alcohol, he said, avoiding possible danger is a wise action. So when someone says drinking alcohol is harmful, avoiding it will be a wise action because it takes possible harm away from us. Having said that, I can say that with certainty that Shia sages, despite living in hardships, usually live longer than others. If you look at their ages, you'll see that they're normally beyond 90, while nowadays even doctors and physicians die from stroke or all kind of diseases at the age of 40 or 50. Why? Because Shia's God, Allah, advises us to drink water while sitting if it's nighttime. We ask, why would we do that? And ignore what he said, but Shia sages would do it despite not knowing the reason until they find out why. They listen to the advice because God told them to, just like how he told Noah to build the ark, or he advised us to drink water while standing if it's daytime, or avoiding beef and drinking milk instead, even suggesting to eat roosters' meat instead of hens. We would ask why. Researchers found out that eating the meat of hen increases the female hormones in men's body, and it will influence their appearances, voice, body, and let's not dive deeper into it.